Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
He's a teacher with a passion. He's an historian with a PhD. From Lourdes to London, from New York to Athens, he's professing the truth that sets you free. You're at the Bar of History with Dr. Ed Mazza.
Are you ready? Are you ready for a little time travel with the doctor? Doctor who? No, with Dr. Ed, professor of church history and your favorite neighborhood barista. Who says all the bars are closed in California? This bar is, oh, well, actually, we're not that kind of a bar, but have we got a lot of theology and international relations coming at you right now? Welcome, everyone. It is Monday, September the 28th in the year of our Lord, 2020. As you know, we are 5 weeks away from the most important election in United States history, an election which will determine whether or not we remain a free country or whether we succumb to the forces of darkness. And so we need to pray as if our lives depend on it, because as a matter of fact, they do. So we're in a life and death situation here, and we need as many graces as possible. And we're going to be talking by the end of the program about the importance of the Rosary. And we've got some very big feast days coming up, and we'll talk about that before long. But without further ado, I want to get to our special guest today. You know, they say all roads lead to Rome, and a lot of activity, folks. If you don't know this, a lot of activity is going on in Rome as we speak. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Cardinal Zen, and others are in Rome to try to talk to Pope Francis, but apparently they're getting the cold shoulder. So I've consulted with Newsmax Rome correspondent. I've invited her on the show, and she's very happy to be with us, and we're very happy to have her. That is to say, Bree Dail. She has 14 years of combined experience in defense consulting and leadership, both in private industry and as a United States Naval Service warfare officer. I'm glad she's on our side. She's a regular contributor for the Daily Caller and for the National Catholic Register. She's also contributed to the AP, the Catholic Herald, Catholic World Report, LifeSite News, and she is going to enlighten us. And so welcome to the show, Bree.
Thank you, Dr. Ed. I really appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We're so glad to have you. So glad to have someone who's got the skills to fight for God and for the church, and who's on the ground where it counts. So I'd like to open the show by asking you, what can you tell us about two different situations that have developed in Rome over the last week? First of all, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is apparently, my sources tell me he's in Rome and he's trying to get a meeting with the Pope, but the Pope won't give it to him. And he's trying to say that the Vatican should not be so cozy with the Communist Party of China and should not renew that agreement. What can you tell us?
Well, we do know that Secretary Pompeo wrote an op-ed piece within First Things last week. It was a really very strong-worded op-ed. And he really went towards religious freedom, and he really keyed in on what we've seen in regards to the Catholic Church and in Hong Kong, as well as the Uyghurs and others. And that's really important to note, because he's actually here in Rome this week for a Vatican-led conference on religious freedom, which is interesting because the individual who is really leading it from the Vatican side is none other than the Secretariat of State, Cardinal Pell, who is the individual who's heading the secret deal with the Vatican and the Chinese. It's shockingly enough, a few days ago, I was sitting here on the Borgo drinking coffee with a friend, and who was walking past me, but none other than Cardinal Joseph Zen. And so I ended up being very blessed to finally meet him. I hadn't met him in person, although we have corresponded quite a bit. And to be able to meet him in this time was really important to me. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that, but back to Secretary Pompeo. So from what I understand, he is traveling here this week. I'm not sure yet if he is here in Rome. But he did request, as any, Secretary of State, requested to meet with Pope Francis. And that request, from what I've been told, was denied. The reason behind that was given by the Vatican that the Pope doesn't really want to see himself or be used or seen as interfering at all within the close elections in the United States. So that's what was given. However, those of us behind the scenes talking with, our sources are confirming that this does have to deal with the Sino-Vatican deal. The Pope is not interested right now in making any waves in that way.
Gotcha. Well, it's a little puzzling for a lot of Catholics how cozy the Vatican seems to be with communist China, and sort of how anti-American the certain statements that come out of the Vatican seem to be. Archbishop Vigano, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this as well before we get to Cardinal Zen. LifeSite News reported that Archbishop Vigano had a statement where he talked about how President Trump, is facing opposition from the deep state and from the church deep state. And in fact, let me get the what he says here. He says that Archbishop Vigano, as you know, the former Vatican nuncio to the United States of America, he says, in the international geopolitical context, the role of Italy may appear in some ways marginal, but in reality, Italy is a testing ground for the experiments of social engineering that the globalist agenda intends to extend to all governments over the span of the next 10 years, both in the economic and political sphere as well as the religious one. It is therefore understandable why La Civiltà, how do you pronounce this? La Civiltà Cattolica, and its omnipresent director, Father Antonio Spadaro, have spent themselves in decomposed endorsements, both of the Italian and global left, including the Democratic Party in America and the Communist Party in China. So, at least from Archbishop Vigano's perspective, the Vatican saying that it doesn't want to take sides seems to ring a little shallow, so to speak, hollow.
Yeah. And I can understand that. It's interesting because Vigano, like you said, is standing credentials as the nuncio, our former nuncio from the Vatican to the United States. He obviously does know how things work, politics in the United States. I think where there is some concern is, however, and this has been spoken to me by certain cardinals that I've spoken to with regards to Archbishop Vigano, when he stands on his credentials and he's speaking on the politics of what's going on, he hasn't been in the game for a little bit. And so he has to be very careful about what he says, because sometimes that could end up being seen as either being overreach, or he may even find himself in a predicament where he's being utilized for other means. And what I mean by that is an example that I think a lot of people could step back and say, well, he did the right thing. But he was kind of used. And this example happened about a month or two ago, when we saw Archbishop Gregory in Washington, D.C., a full week of nothing but back and forth political games that we saw. Archbishop Gregory is saying that he wasn't aware that President Trump was going to go to the Shrine of Divine Mercy and John Paul II. And then later on, we found out that he was, and most people followed that story. And then what ended up happening was then President Trump tweeted out or retweeted Archbishop Vigano's letter to him that had been published. Now, most people might sit back and say, oh, well, that was really nice, and what a coincidence. But from what I've been told by sources very close to the president had that letter for about a week. And so why I'm bringing this up is that there was nothing lost and quite a bit gained in what President Trump did. But right afterwards, he had an interview with Raymond Arroyo where he said, "Well, do you see the Catholic Church supports me? An archbishop supports me." So I think we have to be careful. I'm just speaking as someone who has has an expertise in strategic communications. And what I did, we have to be really careful when it comes to these things, not because there was any bad intent, but that there could be bad intent and a use of someone like Archbishop Vigano, who has a platform, or really any prelate, to the benefit of maybe bad characters or bad actors, or even good actors, but for their own gain. It's something that has to be considered, especially in these times. So,
gotcha. And well, that even came up at the press conference yesterday with President Trump, when some reporter was asking him, well, are the bishops in America going to get on board with your appointment for the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett? Did you catch that? Or
yes, absolutely. And it's very interesting, his response as well. Again, we have seen very politically active bishops in the United States, which is kind of concerning, especially because we have seen the factual reports on the USCCB and other entities, sub entities that report to the USCCB, receiving money under President Obama to push out specific agendas such as refugee resettlement. That should be very concerning to most Americans, because the USCCB is a 501c3, and there is a sense of state and government infringement upon religion when you have monies being transferred. And we also know that in 2016, I think it was around $25,000 or maybe more was handed by a group called PICO to Cardinal Maradiaga when Pope Francis was visiting shortly before the elections, and whereupon the Pope met with Hillary Clinton.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bree. We got cut off there. I didn't hear the music.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't either. That's fine.
Welcome, Daniel. You're on the line. What's on your mind, brother?
Hi, I just wanted to share a testimony about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I had a buddy at work who, he's a lukewarm Catholic guy, and I wanted him to start listening to the Terry and Jesse show, so I kept telling him to download the app, and he kept putting me off. So one day, I grabbed his phone and I downloaded the app for him. I went on vacation, and I kept telling him to listen to it. He was kind of put me off. I came back from vacation. He comes to my cubicle and he says to me, "Hey, man, I've been listening to Terry and Jesse's show, and it's great." And it's made a big impact in his life. The guy, he's going to weekly adoration a couple times a week. He goes to the Mass in the morning. He's an on-fire Catholic, and he promotes the Terry and Jesse show on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Daniel, what a testimony. And I want to encourage our listeners to get those cards by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org and do what Daniel's doing. Go out and spread the faith by inviting people to listen to Virgin Most Powerful. Daniel, thanks for your testimony, brother. God love you.
You're welcome.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to the Bar of History If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Dr. Ed.
You're listening to the most powerful Catholic radio, Virgin Most Powerful Catholic Radio, Virgin Most Powerful Pray for Us. Hello and welcome back to the Bar of History, everyone. I am your barista, Dr. Ed. This is the show where we go back in history in order to save the future. And speaking of history, for those of you that are not aware, I am offering live online classes in both church history and world history. We're going to have our third class this week in church history and on world history. And so it's not too late to register. So if you go to edmundmaza.com, you can sign up. We got a special going on. You sign up for both classes, and it's only a little over $450 on that. So all the details are on the website. And if you want to learn about the history of your faith in order to defend it in the present, I encourage you to sign up for that. Speaking of defending the faith, we have with us today someone who's skilled in that, both on the religious and on the military level. We're very happy to have Bree Dail with us, Rome correspondent for Newsmax. And we're talking about Rome. Rome is the hot spot right now. We were talking about Mike Pompeo, and now I'd like to shift gears a little bit. We also talked about Archbishop Vigano. And, you know, Archbishop Vigano a few months ago was in solidarity with Cardinal Zen against Cardinal Pell, who is the Secretary of State under Pope Francis. And Cardinal Zen, the Bishop of Hong Kong, I think he's Bishop, is he Bishop Emeritus, Bree?
Yes, he is Bishop Emeritus.
So he's been very outspoken for years now about how this Vatican-China agreement is selling out the Chinese Catholics of the underground church. And he blames Cardinal Pell more than anybody else. But now I understand that Cardinal Zen is in Rome, and you actually ran into him. So perhaps you could share with us how all this ties together.
Yeah, so he actually left Rome on Sunday. He was here for only a short time. And so, some of the blogs have reported already that, the Pope was not willing to see him. It was not completely accurate. So I want to make set the record straight. What ended up happening is that he he delivered a letter to the Pope at Santa Marta, just like he had done previously with last year when he presented his dubia. He only had a short amount of time. And so he and his secretary literally had their phones on them the entire time, trying to wait for the potential call from Pope Francis to come and see him. EWTN has the exclusive on this, but he does mention that he understood that because it was so short notice, the likelihood of him not being able to see the Pope was pretty high. But he was really satisfied that he got the letter that he delivered. Now, the letter spoke on multiple things. It spoke on the silence on the Hong Kong situation, the silence on the Sino-Vatican deal, request again for transparency with regards to that, request for answers to the dubia. But the main focus of the letter was actually to request that the Pope install Bishop Ha as the new bishop in Hong Kong. So just as a background for people, they have been waiting for a bishop to be installed now for over a year and a half. Pope Francis reinstated, I guess you could say, the cardinal who came after Cardinal Zen, Cardinal Tong. And Cardinal Tong has been pretty outspoken against Cardinal Zen's activism and others who have been involved with the pro-democracy movement. It seems like Cardinal Tong is a bit more of the appeasement side. And Cardinal Zen says he doesn't really hold it against Cardinal Tong. He feels compassion for him because he's been placed in a pretty difficult position. So long and short, Cardinal Zen was here to request for Bishop Ha because there are rumors that another bishop who is kind of received the blessing of Beijing, which means very badly for those in Hong Kong, has become kind of the favorite of Cardinal Pell and Cardinal Tong. And so the Cardinal Zen felt the need to once more represent his people and speak for his people to, the Holy Father himself.
Gotcha. Well, it's how should I phrase this in terms of the Vatican deal, and in terms of just so the viewers understand this. Imagine if President Trump and the Republican Party insisted on naming the bishops in the United States of America. How would that go over, do you think?
Yeah, and it's not only that. One of the things that Cardinal Zen really wanted to make clear is that even though we don't know the details of the Sino-Vatican deal, and even though we know that there has been rumor that money has been exchanged and whatnot, the big thing that Cardinal Zen really has an issue with, and he speaks about like 3 areas of causing death to the church in China. One of those areas is this document that came out last year, which sparked Cardinal Zen to write his dubia. This document that was a pastoral guideline coming from Cardinal Pell, supposedly not seen by anyone else in any of the dicasteries that really matter in regards to theology, but coming from Cardinal Pell, that it's a pastoral guideline about registration of clergy, meaning that all clergy in China, in mainland China, are being told that the Pope believes that it's necessary for them to register with the independent or patriotic church. And Cardinal Zen said, even Pope Francis believes that the independent patriotic church, the church that was established by the communist Chinese, that have been persecuting the underground Catholics for decades, that church is in schism, and in formal schism, because their head is President Xi. It isn't Pope Francis. So there is that concern that Cardinal Zen has explained that has really caused a lot of disheartening in the church in China and Hong Kong. I can only imagine. I understand from human rights organizations that under President Xi and for the last couple of years since this Vatican secret agreement took place, the situation's only gotten worse for religious groups in China. In fact, just one latest example I just came across, perhaps you've seen it also, from Christian Headlines. I'll read the story. It says, the biblical story of Jesus saving the woman caught in adultery has been twisted and given a new ending in a Chinese textbook, with Jesus killing the woman and telling her that he too is a sinner. Right. This textbook is published by the government-run University of Electronic Science and Technology Press, is used to teach professional ethics and law in vocational schools, according to the Union of Catholic Asian News, which first reported the controversy. So not only are the faithful Catholics and other Christians in China being put to death or imprisoned, but there's actually a twisting of Catholic theology that's going on. Yeah, and it's not surprising, because if you take a look at what Mao did, and now what we've seen with Xi, is that crucifixes have been taken from these the independent churches, even these like patriotic churches. Crucifixes have been replaced by the picture of President Xi. There is a concerted effort, and this has happened within the communist Chinese before, and it's happened in communist Russia. Yet, as a history professor, you can speak to this: the manipulation of religion. Why? Because religion is, quote, the opiate of the masses. It is the thing that ideology is the hardest thing to turn, which is one of the reasons why the Sino-Vatican deal is so concerning, because we don't know the details of what's in the deal. Cardinal Pell does, reportedly, the Pope does. But outside of that, no one else knows. So the Chinese can take this secret document and literally say anything to the people and say, the Pope agrees with this because it's in the deal. We don't know. No one knows. And so there's a real danger there, because you can manipulate ideology. And when you can manipulate and control ideology, you win. You win. It's the hardest thing to turn. So we are seeing that manipulation. And it is something that I've discussed for now almost 4 years, because it's something that the military actually uses too. It's called PSYOPs, information warfare. The military doesn't often do this, but in times of war, we utilize the media in order to be able to promote either peace or, even during like the first Iraqi war, we could talk about like how pamphlets were distributed about like, hey, it's time to give up now kind of thing, that takes place. But the Chinese are master manipulators of media. They know how to do this, and they're running circles around, what's going on with the Sino-Vatican deal.
Gotcha. So can you speak at all from what you've heard from your sources? Why is Cardinal Pell and others within the Vatican, why are they so cozy with communist China? Why aren't they more? I mean, a few years back, Pope Francis was very vocal about being sort of against Trump because he doesn't want to associate with people that build walls, so to speak, right?
Right.
And yet, you can't compare it to what's going on in China. Are your sources telling you anything about what's going on in the Vatican? Why they're so cozy?
Yes. Well, I mean, Cardinal Zen himself spoke about it. He believes that there is a sense of legacy that is being made. Who wouldn't want to be the Pope or the Secretary of State to broker a deal between China and regulate, the Ostpolitik of, regularization of, opening up the door, so to speak, between China and the Vatican? Who wouldn't want that legacy? To what cost, though? And that's the question that is being asked. What was it that was gained here by the blood of the Chinese church? And it doesn't seem like much was gained by the Vatican and the church as a whole. And we are seeing the slow strangulation of the church in China. It doesn't mean that the church is dead. But we, as the Western press and Western world, really has to keep a spotlight on what's going on in China, keep the pressure and political pressure on, financial pressure. This is what speaks to the communist Chinese. And we saw that take place because we saw what was being produced after the virus took off, and the propaganda that the Chinese produced on social media, because they were losing millions. Economic, warfare works in this way.
Right. I'm reading a news report that says that although in October 2019, the Pope received Mike Pompeo at the Vatican, the Holiness assured that on this occasion, I will not meet with political personalities amid electoral campaigns to avoid any kind of manipulation, which you brought up earlier. And it says, according to experts, relations between the Vatican and the U.S. have experienced an extraordinary hardening in recent days. I hear the music here. So when we get back from the break, we've got plenty more about the Vatican and about, the persecution of Christians to talk with journalist Bree Dail. So don't change that dial, and we'll be right back.
If you shop on Amazon.com, there's an easy way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Just visit smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center under the desired charity. Now, when you log into your Amazon account and purchase products, a portion of it will automatically go to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio at no cost to you. Thanks in advance for supporting CRC and VMPR. And may God richly bless you and your family.
How does the baby move in your tummy? How does the baby eat? Can the baby hear me? How did the baby get in there?
Wow, a pregnancy can sure generate a lot of questions. But what's important is that a baby is a baby, inside and out of the womb. Not just after birth, but 9 months before. at conception.
That's right. Every baby is a miracle. Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org, or better yet, simply dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword pro-life. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to the Bar of History. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Dr. Ed.
Bar of History on Virgin Most Powerful Catholic Radio, reminding you all that we are 5 weeks away from the most important election in our lifetime. You know, Our Lady of Fatima warned 100 years ago that every country in the world would be taken over by communism if we did not obtain the conversion of that poor nation. And so we know what we're up against, and so we need to up our prayers and sacrifices and penances. I'm very happy to have with me today Bree Dail, journalist and stellar Catholic, and she's given us the lowdown on what's happening in Rome. All sorts of things are happening. Bree, can you tell us about the return in triumph of Cardinal Pell and what that has to do with the cardinal who's no longer a cardinal with the unpronounceable name?
Well, I'm not sure if it's really much of a return in triumph, to be honest with you. With regards to Cardinal Pell, from what I've been told by my sources, Cardinal Pell was given the opportunity to be able to come back and clean out his desk and, you know, get his apartment that he had here in order. Okay. And so he took that opportunity. Now, could it be that Becciu, Cardinal Becciu, is connected to this in any way, or what happened in the last week? For those who don't know, Cardinal Becciu was as they call it here in the Vatican, decapitated from his post here. It was actually quite shocking on Friday to receive the announcement, very subtly put in the Vatican Bulletino, that stated that he had resigned from not only his post here in the Vatican. He was in charge of the Congregation for the Saints, Causes of the Saints, but he was also underneath for some time Cardinal Parolin. And he was also over quite a bit of oversight with regards to apps and the handling of certain properties, including that notorious property in London that has come into the news with regards to financial scandals in the Vatican this past year. As well as other things such as the Papal Foundation, some mismanagement with hospitals that were reported on the last year. He was connected to, and now from what we understand, mismanagement of monies from Peter's Pence again, that went into some questionable and I guess just investments, you could call them, by one of his brothers. So lots of questions there. Cardinal Becciu had a select group of press at a press conference the day after, whereupon he said that he did nothing illegal. So that was very interesting, the terms that were being used by that versus, him denying that he had done anything. He just said, I didn't do anything illegal. I don't think it's the last we're going to hear about this, but he did resign his post and he resigned his ability to vote. So I believe there's going to be some more that's going to be coming out there because it's pretty harsh punishment from Pope Francis in regards to this. But as the connection goes, I mean, it was Cardinal Becciu who really came down very hard and closed the investigation into the Vatican Bank that was opened by Cardinal Pell. There are questions to whether or not he was involved with perhaps some backhanded dealings in the Vatican during that time. So yeah, not too sure if there's a connection there, but I do know that Cardinal Pell is coming. And he may see the Pope. We don't really have any details on that, but I'll keep you informed.
Yeah, I'm reading from a blog by Italian Catholic author Antonio Socci, and he says that Benedict XVI already tried to clean up the intricate and obscure financial issues of the Vatican, and there was the feeling of a very hard undertaking bordering on the impossible, even to the point of raising in some the doubt that it had influenced the renunciation of Benedict's pontificate. Jorge Mario Bergoglio in 2013 was also elected to clean up the Vatican's finances, as Cardinal George Pell recalled. In fact, he tried from the beginning, but these 7 years have been a succession of attempts and failures. Here, too, with a series of appointments, torpedoes, contradictions, errors, and cases, blah, 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 precipitating the drama of these hours that has invested one of the main collaborators of Pope Francis, Cardinal Angelo Becciu, fired on the spot by the pontiff for the management of Vatican funds. He who was, as Matteo Mazzuzzi writes, the most powerful cardinal, considered closer and in confidence with the Pope. So yeah, there are questions being raised about the timing of all this, I imagine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in any case, I think it is bad, strategic communications to, obviously get ahead of the story that came out. L'Espresso, I think, was the one to report on the Peters Pence connection. We're going to find out more. And when we find out more, it'll probably make a little bit more sense. It does seem like you're getting ahead of a problem, which, let's be honest, if that's the case, good for Pope Francis. It is unfortunate that it has to take a point where, the press finds something out and then something is done. There's got to be questions to whether or not those dealings that have been done for quite some time. I mean, in reality, back in February of this year, there was a raid on the Secretary of State by the Vatican police in regards to this type of mismanagement of funds. So, I am sure that, people are scrambling right now to try to figure things out. And I think that things are going to come out in the press and we're going to find out more. And, the cards will go by, where they may. But in any case, the buck stops at the top. And I think in this case, with regards to Pope Francis, he made the right decision, which was to stop what he saw was corruption, in its tracks.
Also, in related news, apparently Pope Francis, in an address to the United Nations on Friday, he asked that international sanctions against certain countries be eliminated since they prevent, quote unquote, their governments from offering adequate support to their populations. The article I'm reading from says, in making this request, however, the Vatican state did not make further specifications, although it lamented the erosion of multilateralism that prevails in the contemporary international order. And so I wonder, is this directed against the United States, which has sanctions against Venezuela, the communist regime in Venezuela, and the Iranian regime in Tehran?
And China. Yeah. It's 100% directed towards the United States. Again, it's the idea of globalism versus nationalism that has been at the center, unfortunately, of the politics in this pontificate. That's why it's very interesting to hear the Pope say that he wasn't willing to meet, Secretary Pompeo because of the elections, yet at the same time was willing to make these announcements. Again, it's a mindset that comes from that's been very consistent with Pope Francis. He is focused on the poor. And he has been since before he was Pope, before he was even a cardinal, when he was a bishop back in Argentina. He very much involved with movements that were more focused on, the social justice issues. So, I am not surprised that, such language was discussed at the UN.
In fact, this week is the 7th anniversary of Pope Francis giving a rather lengthy interview with the Civita Cattolica and Spadaro, in which he said some things that the New York Times reported with a lot of glee, things like Catholics shouldn't be talking so much about abortion and contraception and homosexuality, and it just seems like, again, the Jesuits here are sort of siding with the left, and being critical of the right, so to speak. But
yeah, and it's unfortunate because even our friend Father Matig, who is here on Virgin Most Powerful Radio, I mean, he is a Jesuit as well. Not all Jesuits are that way. I mean, many of the faithful sons of Saint Ignatius really have a heart for the missions and not focused on the politics, but on souls. And hopefully, we could pray that the younger versions of these Jesuits, from what I've been told, there's a new crop that are coming in with fire for mission and
wonderful,
and not for politics. So let's pray for the renewal of the Jesuit order.
Amen. Amen to that. Well, speaking of prayer, Bree, can you tell us about the Coast to Coast Rosary and what you've got coming up?
Thank you for asking. So because I've been here in Rome, I've not been as involved as I probably would have been a few years ago. I am looking at trying to push one big video for, just a promotion for Rosary Coast to Coast here in Rome. But what's crazy happening in the next few weeks has been October 11th is when Rosary Coast to Coast will be taking place and the Holy League of Nations will be joining. But what's been crazy has been also there's going to be a big letter that's going to be signed this next week or the week after in Assisi by Pope Francis, and then shortly after the beatification of a beloved new beati, Carlo Acutis, is going to take place. So I think there's just a lot coming together and goodness, but it does seem that there are quite a few people who have signed up again this year for Rosary Coast to Coast. And really, it's very simple this year. We're calling for just prayer of the Rosary wherever you are because of the virus, wherever you are, praying for the peace, for the restoration in the church, and for the end of the crises. So pray your Rosary October 11th in union with the church and the world.
All right. Excellent. Good stuff. Well, when we come back from the break, we've got one more segment left with Bree. So don't go anywhere, and get those rosaries ready because we need them right now. So we will be right back.
We got Ernesto from Long Beach.
I just wanted to comment, and I just wanted to thank you guys. And I kind of wanted to encourage people that are listening, maybe that are not donating, because honestly, I got to be honest. I used to think you guys were a little
too over the top.
Yeah.
That's right.
If God gave us a lot, and I have the blessing of listening to all this. And I just want to call all the people, I got 5 kids, and I don't make a lot of money, and I'm still donating to you guys.
God bless you, brother. You're amazing.
We have to do this. We have to do the extra. And it's not even the extra. People see it like it's extra. Kneeling for communion, saying your rosary, saying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. It is not extra. It's what the church tells us to do.
Amen. You're a good man, brother.
30 years old, 29 years old, 5 kids, and I thank you guys. But everybody else, man, get on fire. Fight for the truth, man. I know what I'm telling you guys.
I love it.
Out there.
Sirach 11:24 says, "Do not say, I am self-sufficient. What harm can come to me now?" According to St. Catherine of Siena, presumption is like vermin burrowing at the root of the tree of our soul. If we do not uproot it with great care and humility, it will eventually destroy the soul. May God keep us from all presumption of mind and heart, and realize that we depend on Him for everything.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
Now, back to the Bar of History. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Dr. Ed.
Welcome back to the Bar of History. We are the Church Militant, and so we've got a military expert with us today, but she's also a journalist, and she is telling us what's going on in Rome, because these are exciting times. These are, as Archbishop Vigano says, it's the children of light versus the children of darkness. And so many different interesting, fascinating things that are going on that have ramifications for the salvation of souls. So we need to be informed and we need to be praying. Bree, I don't want to get ahead of a story, but since you did mention in less than a week, Pope Francis will be releasing an encyclical. And I have an article here from America magazine, the Jesuit Review, and it says Pope Francis will sign new encyclical on human fraternity at the tomb of St. Francis of Assisi. And it says here, the Matteo Bruni, the Holy See Press Office, released this statement. Mr. Bruni said that the new encyclical will bear the title Fratelli Tutti, which could be, which the article says could be translated as brothers and sisters all. That doesn't strike me as the most Catholic of titles, if that's the actual title. Anyway, and it says here that the Argentine Pope has decided to sign the encyclical at the tomb of St. Francis. And he's influenced by St. Francis and his love of the poor. Can you tell us anything about this? What are the rumors on the ground where you are?
Well, I mean, I think that this has been reported on when Pope Francis went over to the Middle East and started to sign documents in regards to human fraternity back then. Now, I think this is the fruit, from what I've been told, the fruit of these talks and engagement and dialogue, as is used, that term quite a bit in the Vatican. It's funny because there has been this subset of controversy around this document. This controversy deals with the actual name that you gave. It's Fratelli Tutti, which actually means all our brothers. All our brothers. It's interesting that they had to do brothers and sisters all because of this particular, controversy that's been dredged up in certain media outlets, individuals who kind of skew more left, women who have been very active in the church are taking aback at that and taking some issues at the non-inclusive language that seems to be being produced here. And in some ways, I am tongue-in-cheek in this because I find that absolutely ridiculous. But in reality, there have been a few, not a little ink spilled on that particular topic. With women coming out and using it as a platform to discuss why women are still not yet as deeply involved as they should be in certain elements in the church. And so it's interesting. I think we're going to see some of that spin coming out of secular press as we see this signing of the document, kind of overshadowing to the document itself. Another thing that has been interesting is that we have not heard whether or not the Vatican has formally reviewed the Sino-Vatican deal. But from what I've been told by some sources, that might actually be announced during the time of the Pope's visit to Assisi. If that takes place, it may actually find itself being kind of a footnote in the whole event in Assisi versus being the story, which would be strategically quite good for the Vatican, since the Sino-Vatican deal is not a popular thing amongst most Christians, actually. So
is that kind of like dumping on a Friday, some story?
Friday night dump. Yeah, exactly. In the news cycle, a lot of times we'll end up finding those big stories will be dumped, hopefully to not be seen or get much press on Fridays. But now, with new media, that doesn't really take place anymore. The news cycle is 24/7, 7 days a week.
Now, not to relitigate the whole issue, but when Pope Francis did visit North Africa and signed the document on human fraternity, Bishop Schneider came out and criticized the Holy Father and said, in this document, you say that God wills not only the plurality of races and sexes, but of religions, and that's just not Catholic teaching. In private, apparently, Pope Francis said, yes, I meant the permissive will of God, not the express will of God. But he's never actually come out and corrected that publicly.
No, and he's never corrected the document that has been spread in the seminaries. So, obviously action and words, right? That is something that is also being discussed behind the scenes. Is that going to be included in this document that's come out? So very well pointed out. We are anticipating more inclusive language in that way. But you never know with Pope Francis. Sometimes he surprises you, and we saw that with regards to reports that took place at before the Amazon, the final document of the Amazon Synod, and reports that were discredited for that purpose. So it's always really important to kind of wait until the document is out, and it has not yet been given to the press to read. So we're kind of just sitting here, and a lot of it is conjecture. And I won't write on it until I see it.
Okay. Sort of on the same wavelength here, many Americans, Catholics, Christians, others are upset about the way the government is sort of imposing these church lockdowns on us, and the bishops just seem to be going along with it for the most part. I understand that in Italy, it might even be worse. You've been on the ground there for a while. Can you speak to the situation where the state seemed to be calling the shots, and the bishops and the priests in Italy don't seem to be minding or doing anything?
Yeah, one of the things that has been a concern for me has been to be able to receive our Eucharistic Lord on the tongue. There has been adaptation at San Trinita dei Pellegrini, which is the traditional Latin Rite Mass here in Rome, which is nice. I've also been to a Carmelite parish that the Carmelites would give our Eucharistic Lord to those who received him in the hand, and then afterwards would come to those of us who would receive the mouth, and that on the tongue, and that's that also was very good. But I've been in parishes too where they refused it, and that was fine for me, because one of the things I think people have to remember is when we receive our Eucharistic Lord, it's a privilege. It's not a right. There are people who say you have the right to the sacraments, and there's a sense to that in canonical sense. You do have the right to receive the sacraments, but it is still a privilege to receive our Eucharistic Lord. And unfortunately, especially in the West, a lot of people receive him not being in the state of grace and think it's their right to do so as well. So there are times when, you do have to offer things up, and I've experienced that too. But yeah, it's unfortunate. We are seeing, the certain bishops in Italy and other places in the world, in the UK and others, that have really cracked down even more than what the government's request is. And it's kind of like policing your own, but in this case, it seems quite excessive and not really appropriate, comparing, the actual science to, the remedy,
Right. Well, speaking of remedies, I know that you have friends that are doing spiritual warfare, and exorcists, and can you tomorrow's the great feast of Saint Michael the Archangel, and obviously these next 5 weeks are going to be very important. We can't underestimate just how important the spiritual battle is. Can you speak to us about spiritual warfare and just what's at stake here, and what have you heard anything from your friends who directly deal with the demonic on a daily basis?
I mean, I was actually speaking to a priest who does spiritual warfare, although he is not an exorcist. He's close to others, but he was doing spiritual warfare. We were talking about a specific issue that's dealing with, unfortunately, I've been in contact with some victims of clerical sex abuse. I'm not going to go into that now, but it's actually quite disturbing, because there's ritualistic side of this as well. And we were discussing the level of spiritual warfare, just to even engage in talking about this particular topic. For me and my spiritual director, he has said, okay, you are to only do this amount of things with regards to this story, because it's too big. It's too big. And it is. And so, when you recognize that spiritual warfare is taking place, and I think anybody with eyes that can see right now can see what's going on in, the riots that are taking place, the emotionalism, the lack of reasoning with individuals who are attacking people, the murders that are going on in broad daylight. It's no wonder. You have to step back and say, okay, what we're dealing with regards to the politics and the situation in the world also deals with the supernatural, and we can't separate those or compartmentalize them or brush one off and say, oh, because I'm close to our Eucharistic Lord and I go to Mass every day, I don't have to worry about that. I can trust in God. Well, Christ said that we have to work out our salvation, and even he was tempted by the devil. So we have to realize that we are in a war. Last year, I was told by exorcists behind the scenes, who, when they called for the prayer, when I wrote that article, I was told by the exorcists that what they had experienced in that fight was strong, and they did receive, that strength by those who pray. But they said what they were facing was a behemoth. And I think we're starting to see that with the reactionary that we're seeing right now. And I think if you ask anybody within the church right now, most people are really struggling, Dr. Ed. There are a lot of people. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Since I've moved here to Rome, nothing has been easy. Nothing, from finding a place to live to getting my dogs over to dealing with friendships. Everything has been hard. And so, with that understanding that we are fighting a battle not just flesh and bone, but we're dealing with powers and principalities, I think that gives us a little bit of an understanding that we're not alone as well in this battle, and that we can rely on, but we have to do our part. So spiritual warfare has been involved. It's been involved very heavily, I think, in the last year. We've experienced it at Rosary Coast to Coast. Division, all of that in the church, we've got to just recognize it.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bree, for all that you do for the church. And thanks for updating us. And God bless you. Well, Thank you all once again. The hour goes by far too quickly, folks. And the next 5 weeks are going to go by too quickly. So remember, let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things are passing, right? God alone never changes. And if you've got God, you lack absolutely nothing, because God alone is where it's at. Tune in again
Saint
next week.
Faustina's prayer for priests. O my Jesus, I beg thee on behalf of the whole Church, grant it love and the light of thy Spirit, and give power to the words of priests, so that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance and return to thee, O Lord. Lord, give us holy priests. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great High Priest, may the power of thy mercy accompany them everywhere, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, which are continually being set for the souls of priests. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity of priests. For thou canst do all things. Amen. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.